Welcome back to another episode of BestowCast. This episode is going to be, I guess, a little bit bestow-tastic. See what I did there? Don't click off. Please don't. I kind of decided a little bit ago, I have some stuff in the library that needs to be edited. I have some new stuff that I need to produce. I have some podcasts I want to get out there, some old podcasts I want to get out there, or some new podcasts I want to get out there, some old videos I want to get out there, there's some new videos I want to get out there. And I guess, I kind of want to just burn through it because a lot of it just kind of, is just building up. And, it just sits there and it just takes forever to get through. And I'm not at any point where I can hire an editor or anything else. So I still end up having to do it all. And I'm on the cusp of having to work that side gig again. So I'm hoping, I gotta come through with the fans. I gotta present you guys something weekly, so I gotta stay focused and stay committed and not let that side hustle get in the way. So one of the things that I wanted to do was every day in May. I don't know if this is an internet thing. If it is, congratulations. I am a participant in this. If it's not a thing, congratulations. I just created a new thing. Just basically I wanted to burn through my library, build up a lot of new stuff, and on the back end thing, on the behind the scenes kind of thing, kind of improve my SEO, kind of improve my my optimization a little bit, bring up my visibility just a little bit. So I can't really talk too terribly much, but about things that need to be shot at this time. But I can talk about stuff that has been in the archive. We did the live feeds. We used to do the live feeds on Twitch, and then the idea was that they were supposed to get edited down and come back to YouTube, but they never really got to that point because the computer broke down, and like I said, I was working the side hustle for way too long, and everything kind of went to shit. So now that I got things up and going again, I'm trying my best to play catch up and generate new stuff. So we were getting the Pokemon stuff out of the way, which was a surprising hit, and I actually do well. And I'm glad it does well because then I get to show Kyra the numbers, and I'm like, Kyra, look, people are watching this stuff. They want to see more of this stuff. You need to come back and do more of this, please come back. So, so I'm hoping. I don't know if any of this will appear in any day in May. I'd like to push one of the at least one Pokemon's episode in any day in May, every day in May rather, of doing the Pokemons. But I released those prior. I was just trying to create a baseline, and I think I have more than enough live stuff to edit down that. There would be too much for May. So I actually started that stuff ASAP as soon as I could, and get that rolling, get myself into that creative groove, get those juices flowing, so I can be extra juicy when I get up on the air. So we got the Pokemons going, and we have a few other things. Now I'm kind of back and forth because a lot of the stuff that we were doing on the live streams, we were learning a lot. So some of those streams are not exactly up to snuff or not up to my standards. Some of those things, like I think there was a learning experience there where I'm on the fence about doing live streams going forward. I mean, I guess it depends on what you guys say and what the consensus is. But yeah, I think a lot of it was that I had delusions of grandeur, and I wanted to have all multi-camera setup and all this other stuff, and it always ended up there was all how do I say this? Back in the day, there used to be control. Like, I guess you could say the evil corporations controlled the way the FCC used to control ways of how you produced videos and held standards. So you pretty much had a universal way of doing things. Then came the internet age, and then came the YouTube age. Then came the age where everybody can do, I had to spend thousands of dollars to go to school to use the hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment so that I could be certified and I could be employable by television companies and stuff. I was FCC. Well, I guess I knew the rules of the FCC. Did I really? I don't know. I knew a lot about the equipment that was super expensive to get a hold of and no consumer could ever have. And then we come to the YouTube age where you can do all that shit on your phone. A bajillion people do it. Somebody can just sit down and write code and create things. They put it out there for free because, screw the evil corporations who want to pick your pocket. Here's free versions of that stuff. And the free versions of that stuff, good luck finding anything that's coherent or hasn't been outdated. The unfortunate thing with YouTube is everybody's an expert, even though, some of the information that you can kind of get on some of that stuff is absolute bullshit, or is stuff that was written for something that was old, and then the company or whoever was producing that stuff changed it, so it's not the same. But because that's a popular video and everybody's searching for that, you're watching this, you're taking all this stuff that is old, and nobody ever removes it from the internet. Nobody ever takes it down because I want money, and this is only how I can get money and fame and views. So I leave this up there, even though it's bullshit and fake and it's not correct. It used to be correct, but it's not correct now, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And that's the way it is with OBS. That was the way with OBS. There's like a bajillion and one ways. I don't know how many different videos I watched. But like a lot of the things were, I wanted to do a 2-camera. I wanted to make a 2-camera shoot. I wanted to use my high-end, air quotes, professional grade cameras. But yeah, I had to spend a bajillion dollars if I wanted a switcher and everything, and that's not really necessarily in the budget. So I had to use OBS, which meant I had to run out and buy stupid ass webcams over my good cameras and use stupid ass cheap webcams. And shit like that's never, it's not consistent. Everything everything's a numeral, but there's no way of like adjusting those numerals, and those numerals may not necessarily, you shoot today and tomorrow those numerals could be completely friggin' different. They're never the same. There's never a way to just like adjust the focus. So if I'm in the middle of a live feed and like the camera's just a little bit, just a hair out of focus, there's no way I can stop everything down to set that focus without having to stop the freaking live stream and go in there and tinker around. Or if I can tinker around, sit there and waste time during a live stream trying to tinker around a damn focus instead of just, turning a knob on the camera. Or my biggest problem during the live streams. Now, this is a Bestow TV reviews Bestow TV. My problems were a lot of overblown, we had the proper lighting, but we went from not having the proper lighting, so everything was super dark, to having the proper lighting where everything was lit properly, but then a lot of the settings within the camera itself overblew the lighting. And of course, even though the two webcams were the exact same model of webcams, it doesn't matter. They both for some reason function differently, and it would never be the same. So all our brights, there's like one episode where our brights down on the table were different, even though we had that downward facing camera set up the same as the forward facing camera. The downward facing camera was overblown for whatever gosh darn reason. I don't know. Going forward, I don't know if I can do live streams like that, because it's like I gotta have to be able to control this stuff, because I don't want to just sit here and keep throwing content in the bin. I want to put it out there. And I understand that YouTube is not CBS or anything. It's not held to a higher standard. I need to hold myself to a higher standard. A lot of review firms and everything else tell you, oh, well, the fans will be upset, if you don't hold yourself to a higher standard, and they'll click away. But you know what? There's a lot of shit that I watch on YouTube that it's a very basic setup, and I don't click away, and the information is too good. So I'm hoping that Bestow TV's information is good enough, and then we just just like my D&D table rules, I will just do with what we have now, and I'll fix it the next day, and that would be the code go moving forward. That long ass rant and bitch fest was basically what brings me to BestowCast. And there's a let's see here, no, that one doesn't count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 episodes. No, 5 episodes. There are 5 episodes that are I guess considered lost episodes. They were live on Twitch So they existed on Twitch for 14 days, and then Twitch took them down. And then the idea was that I was going to edit them down, and they were going to go to YouTube, and they were going to go to wherever you listen to this lovely podcast, mainly Spotify, but Spotify redistributes elsewhere. So wherever you listen to this show. And it was also back during the time when we were doing the actual like video end before I decided that I wanted to do audio end because I think I personally I like podcasts as audio only instead of visual. I listen to podcasts in my car. I'm not watching podcasts. But Spotify had this new thing that you had to do. You could do videos and we would promote you more, and we're going to be YouTube's competition. So we were doing videos back then. And looking at this list, what's problematic was, of course, the computer went down, like I said. So it took a while to get it back together. And the other problem is the episode that didn't go out was the first episode, I should say, that didn't go out is ranking the MCU movies. This is practically a year old. This is 2022. This ended, I think the last movie on that list was Doctor Strange's Multiverse of Madness, because the Multiverse of Madness review was the week before that. So I'm putting out a video that's over a year old that we're only ranking those movies, and it's just like, do I throw this in the trash? This is no longer viable. I mean, there's another year worth of stuff. Are people even going to watch this? Is this just going to sit and rot? Unfortunately, I can't just let this. I can't. We worked on this thing. It has, it's going to go out one way or another. It's kind of interesting is that we're in the future. That I can kind of look back on that and be like, when I write the description, the title, I can say, oh, this covers this from here to here. When I make my YouTube channel, don't try to be clickbaity and lie about shit and just like, oh, here's our ranking. Here's our current ranking of the MCU movies. I'm just going to have to say this is the 2022 version, and this ends at this point. The other issue was that it was an over-edited episode. This episode was in editing forever. I think this episode was delaying all the other episodes because I was editing this before the computer broke down. And the issue was, again, like I said earlier, is I had delusions of grandeur. I had a front camera facing. I was able to split the camera so that I was on the left and Riley was on the right. I didn't have to set up an extra camera, so we're on the bottom. Then there was an animated layer that just showed animation, and then we had the tier list so that you could see us moving things onto the tier list live. Problem being was that when I would switch back and forth, if I would switch to the wide angle where we were both in at the same time, when I would do that, when I would go back to the split screen, the video would like go blank or whatever, and then the animation would restart. Like there was all these glitches, this OBS glitches, all this bullshit stuff that you end up you can't you can complain about it, but you can't really complain about it because you're using free software. But it creates issues, and it's not what I had in mind. So I had to break that all down and re-edit all that, including recreating the list. I'd do a screen grab and recreate the list. And I only recreated the first half of the list. I had half of the first half edited down, trying to, because I think we streamed for like an hour, but I do slates within the live feed to denote that where the half an hour part of the show is. So trying to edit an hour show down to a half an hour. I think it was even more than an hour. It might have even been 2 hours. So I'm just trying to edit all that down. And of course the computer crash happens, and it took forever for me to get back into this because it's like, oh, this is a chore to edit now because I have to recreate all this stuff, and there's some stuff that's just not exactly up to my standards of production, but I'm going to have to concede because there's no other way to do it. And I got it edited down, and Yeah, it came to part two, and yeah, the computer is the original computer that I screen grabbed from is not it exists, but it could crash. It may not be able to record what I need to record for the next 15 minutes. So I ended up having to emulate. The first computer was a Mac, and this one I have a PC emulate a Mac. So it's not exactly the same. Shh. Here's a little Easter egg, but part two, the segment two, does not match segment one's animation. And I was going through a mental breakdown, a mental crisis during this time where I was like, do I just go back and redo one so visually it just matches? And then it's just like, shit, nobody's going to care. Like, this is old news. I may not get as many clicks as what I'd like on it as if I would have released it on time. I'm just getting it out there to get it out there. Just deal with it. And not to mention, is like, once it goes to Spotify will get the visual version, but I'm going to strip the audio and do an audio only version as well. So the graphics, the visuals aren't going to matter. So yeah, that's the growing pains of this. So, and it doesn't end there, because we do like a movie catch up where we talk about Rescue Rangers, and Riley finally saw Shang-Chi, so we talk about Shang-Chi. There's another episode where we talk about sports ball collecting. So we were talking, I think we brought out all the bobbleheads and stuff, and we were talking about the bobbleheads. And I believe we just came back from a game, a Phillies game, where we had gotten a bobblehead. It's unfortunate. I'm sad that these didn't. I'm sad that these didn't make it to Spotify or anywhere else, but they're going to have to. I'd rather them out there than not out there at all. I'd rather one or two views on them than just nothing and them sitting in a bin. And I would hope that, a lot of you that are listening, a lot of you listening are supporters of Bestow TV. You've been fans, you've been supportive of me in the past, and I'm sure that you will look past it. I kind of talk about this for the overall audience. This also means that, this is a good point to talk about the YouTube podcasting thing. So, Spotify, like I said, did the video segments like last year. It rolled that out, and YouTube rolled out, we're going to do podcasts as well, and you're able to do podcasts here. So I, in my diseased little mind, thought I could double dip and try to do both Spotify and YouTube, where it's like I'll have a Spotify release and I'll have a YouTube release, and I'll capture both audiences, which is never necessarily a good plan. It's not really, usually if you I think Sean Cannell's like, if you're hunting two rabbits, you're more likely to lose both rabbits than to catch both of them. So versus like just catching one, or I might have butchered that a little bit, but hey, it is what it is. So YouTube had, like I said, rolled out podcasts, but it never worked like a freaking podcast. What happened is, like, or what I saw, I don't know how it is on the back end, but what I saw was that, there was a podcast listing on their page. If you go to their watch page or whatever, there was a podcast segment. And I would never see my show on the segment. I would never see Sleepless Knights of Insomnia with Mr. Lobo on the podcast site. These are two things that are specifically podcasts. Okay, well, maybe they won't show up because they're from me and it's my account, even though the Sleepless Knights is Mr. Lobo's account. But because they're related to me, they probably won't show up on my side of things. So, well, maybe like, I don't know, like Peg Warmers is another podcast. They're more so of a vodcast. This is this is a nitpick with me, where it's like there's a difference between podcast and vodcast. Podcasts are generally audio only, and vodcasts are video podcasts where there's a video element. And I kind of hate the fact that YouTube pushes podcasts as podcasts when in reality they're vodcasts. And if you hear that door squeaking, it's because the cat decided that we're gonna just keep pushing on that damn door. So I apologize for that. You're gonna listen to that for the rest of this podcast because somebody's being a dork. So yeah, and it just ended up that there was just a division on there, and things that I would consider podcasts never showed up there. I mean, there was a time that I looked up there and there was Angry Video Game Nerd, Nostalgia Critic listed under the podcast section. And it's like, I wouldn't consider these shows podcasts. I wouldn't consider these things something I would listen to if I was driving in my car. There are visual elements to this show. So I wouldn't classify this stuff as podcasts. And realistically speaking, I had like roughly like 30 some episodes on YouTube, including when I finally decided to go from a vodcast to a podcast. And when I was still doing the YouTube thing, trying to capitalize on their podcast division, I would just do a nice animation with my voice, with a waveform with my voice on it, for the YouTube. Because there are podcasts that I watch where there's no visual elements, so it's a screensaver basically most of the time. They don't really, I watch Caravan of Garbage. I watch Mr. Sunday Movies, I think it is. I'm sorry if I butchered that, but like their podcast, and a lot of their stuff is just basically like, it's a superhero screensaver for whatever half an hour that they're talking. And that's fine, because I have that on, I'm working or I'm driving or whatever. So I kind of did that for myself, where it's just like, well, there's no visual elements to what I'm talking about. So I'm just going to do this waveform and a nice little animation and just hope that people are listening. And all in all, the view retention on my channel just went in the toilet. It just, people weren't really, they click on for like a second on like the podcast. It was just kind of tanking my overall channel. So it's like, it's not where I want it to be. It's, I want it to be at a podcast. I don't want to start a new channel specifically for the podcast. Spotify does everything that I want. YouTube wants me to, YouTube, I've said this once before, YouTube moves the goddamn goalpost constantly and wants me to do all this kind of shit in order to get the thing, when Spotify does everything right out of the damn box. And if I didn't have Spotify, I can do that myself. Sleepless Knights with Mr. Lobo used to be a podcast on its own, and I used to write the code every damn week and distribute it to iTunes and everywhere else. Why I changed that was that you couldn't get Spotify or a lot of the top tier places to put it, because you had to go through them. They kind of changed it. I think you can now put your own RSS in there, and they would just crawl that and redistribute that. But back then it was up in the air. It was unknown. And I wanted to be on Spotify. I wanted to be on iTunes. I wanted to be on a lot of the things. So we just switched over to Spotify because it was easier. YouTube doesn't provide any of that stuff, and YouTube wants, like they want their bajillion different goals and all these different hoops that you have to do and all these plates to spin, just so that they can give you like 3 cents for your time spent. I'm stopping myself now. I'm not going to bitch about that. But anyway, so recently YouTube was like, oh, hey, you remember that podcast thing? What are we doing? We're doing that podcast thing again. So now the podcast, we're putting a podcast area on YouTube Music. So, your channel that has billions and billions of views and stuff, well, now they can find your stuff on you can go to YouTube Music and find the podcast. So I followed the rules. I dusted off the old stuff. New stuff, season 3 stuff wasn't even on YouTube. I don't know if season 3 stuff will be on YouTube in every day or in May. We'll see how it goes. I have an idea of what I might do for visuals if I do a season 3. I dusted everything off, and I don't know if there's more hoops. I don't know if there's more goalposts. I don't know if there's more plates to spin. BestowCast is available on YouTube Music, but at the time of this recording, if you type BestowCast, you are not going to find jack shit. It is not going to show up. And everybody is celebrating about oh, well, now we got our podcast on there, and I'm like, it has to be for like the top subscribers. It has to be the people that have like 10,000 subscribers or whatever. It has to be available. It must be a thing that's only available to this type of person, or it's too brand new and it's just not going to work until it'll work itself out. Because the main thing with YouTube Music is that, well, that means it will treat a podcast like a fucking podcast and actually will be audio only. It will strip, if you have video, it will strip the video and you can have the audio. However, you can also bring it up on YouTube and it will have the video with it as well. And everything that I have from BestowCast is just from it's from YouTube. It's not, there's nothing from YouTube Music. I've tried finding it on YouTube Music. I find it under my account because of course it's my account and it's there. When I sign into my master account, it's not, I can't find it. It's not there. And then I also put, when they were rolling this out, they're like, oh, if you have other shows on your channel that are, they're visual, but they could pass as being an audio only thing. They're like, make another playlist for that show and put that show in there. And I did that for Creative Continuity, because it's like Creative Continuity is an interview show. People like it, people listen to it. So, but you don't necessarily have to have the visuals. There's never really anything that they're referencing that I actually have to have a visual to. They're not like showing something and saying, here, this is. So what I've been doing is, like, when I've been updating my webpage, which, by the way, we're on version 3 of Bestow.tv. If you haven't been there, please check it out if you can. So I've been slowly updating and fixing that, and fixing the thumbnails and fixing some of the SEO. And when I fixed that on YouTube, on the YouTube end, I would go and it would carry over, and then I would make a page for the version 3 Bestow TV. I was doing that with like the Creative Continuity things, and when they were being fixed and they're available on Bestow.tv, I would turn them into podcasts, with the exception of like Romy Park or Mystic Messenger, because they're speaking in a foreign language, and then I have English subtitles underneath them. So that wouldn't necessarily work on a podcast unless you spoke whatever language they were speaking. If you were speaking Korean or Japanese or whatever language that they all were speaking, there's some stuff that are exempt on it. And, as soon as I did that, there's an uptick, and there's a lot of, you got views. Look at your podcast is doing so well, Paul. Look at all the views you're getting on this podcast. Your podcast is up X amount %. Wow, isn't this great? You look at the analytics on it, and then you go and you look, and it's just like, oh, they just pulled all the analytics from the video end of it. Nobody's listening to it on YouTube Music. That's complete and utter bullshit. They aren't doing that. It's because like the biggest thing is I put Laura Bailey and Travis Willingham on there. That is my number 1 video of all time and number 2 currently. And, when I put it over there, it's like, oh, look, you've got thousands of views, thousands of listens on this podcast. And it's like, no, it's all the thousands of views that were on the YouTube end, and you just carried it over onto the podcast end, and you're telling me that I got 1,000 extra views, which, in fact, I didn't. It is not being found. Nobody can find that shit, and I have no idea what, I don't know how I'm going to proceed with that. So, for every day in May, these visual things that didn't come out in time will be going out onto YouTube. They will be going to the podcast and on YouTube as well. As far as, so I can complete the circle, and so I can calm that nagging feeling of, oh, there's something that's incomplete and nobody else can never see ever again. I complete that circle, so it will be available on YouTube. It will be available on YouTube podcasts. On YouTube Music, if God forbid you could actually find it, and and then the visual end will be on Spotify, which also brings up a new can of worms, where I do kind of get the views on the visual end of Spotify, but I prefer the podcast being a perfect podcast. I prefer doing it this way, where I'm talking to you guys. It's a little bit easier to edit. I know, like, I don't know if I could do the one-on-one, me alone speaking, to you guys on camera every day. It is a lot to set up lights and mics and have everything set up, have the table set up, have the backdrop set up, have make sure everything is working, versus now where I can kind of just sit down and just turn on the mic, turn on the recorder, and just record. And I don't know if if I'm talking to a camera, I don't know if I can maintain this time. There's an element where when I'm editing this, I hate the max headroom type edits that modern YouTube, and when I get my channel reviews, I'm supposed to do this. I'm supposed to take out the ums and the ers and the stutters and stuff. I hate that when it's a visual element and the person's jumping and jumping and jumping and jumping and jumping and jumping, because everything's a jump cut. I was trained not to fucking do that. I can't untrain myself not to fucking do that, because we're in the modern world and that's what we want to do. And people are clicking away because you're stuttering too much. It's easier for me to edit this in a audio form. And, there's other things, I have to, looking back on these videos, I have poor eye contact. You're supposed to look into the lens. Another thing that I'm trained not to do. But you're supposed to look down in the barrel and make a connection with your audience. Usually when I'm doing a live stream or when I'm recording, I'm spinning so many plates. I've got to, I'm checking the feed and I'm checking this and I'm running that thing and I'm checking the audio and I got to check the camera. And so my eyes are all over the place except for where they need to be. And then, when I get the critiques, you need to look at the camera. And it's like, I need to look at the camera, but I'm a fucking army of one. I've got to do everything. I've got to run the whole shit show. And it's, how do you do that and then still keep your eye on the camera? And like I said, I feel like this is more personal. This is more connected doing an audio way. Kind of looking at the balance between things when we were doing the live feed, because, I felt better when I would bring Riley in or Kyra in. I think Kyra was in very few. It was mainly Riley was in most of them. We would bump the insanity to like 11. A lot of it was, we had this idea of producing a comedy. We wanted the show to be a comedy, and I don't know how much of it's comedy and how much of it's just pure obnoxiousness. It's fun going back and editing this and editing back into our old ways, but it's like the new audio version doesn't have have that kind of, feel anymore, where it's like I try to be a little bit more one-on-one with you guys and not be bouncing off the walls and be too Looney Tunes, be too much Thor Love and Thunder. And now I got to take a minute and think about what that pin was, because now I completely forgot. I said, I got to put a pin on this. I will come back to it. And what the hell was it?
Please hold the line.
Oh, wow. It's just another thing that I said I'm put a pin in it. I need to here's another thing where it's like working alone. I just probably should have typed a note or something and just paused the recording for a second and typed a note, because I completely forgot what my pin was, and I can't go. I remember what the pin was for Dungeons and Dragons. I don't remember what the pin was for this. I hope that, you enjoy every day in May. I hope that this is not new levels of obnoxiousness and turn people off from every day in May. I'd like to have Riley onto the podcast more frequently. College is coming up for her, so we'll probably, the possibility maybe we'll do it online or over the web. Do it Sleepless Knights style. But I think I've ranted enough about Bestow TV stuff and behind the scenes stuff, and I hope that this gives you a good peek into behind the scenes and how we're progressing. And enjoy every day in May, and I will talk to you as soon as I can talk to you when I talk to you. Bye.